Good Devach, everybody. So I'll tell you, Maisa, the Baal Shem Tov, the way the Baal Shem Tov was, especially in the earlier years, is that he would go from town to town, and he would just go to the marketplace, say stories, say Divrei Torah, and inspire people in such a way, and change people's lives like that. So the Baal Shem Tov said the following, Maisa. He said that there was one particular town that he came to visit, and it was him, the Baal Shem Tov came, with two of his students, two other tzadikim, and they came to this town. So Baal Shem Tov said he comes to the center of the town, and he begins to do his thing. He begins to say stories, to say Divrei Torah, and a whole group of people begin to gather and listen, and everything is going, as usual. Baal Shem Tov said, though, the corner of his eye, he noticed while he was talking, the corner of his eye, he sees this Jew that's walking down the block, and this Jew is, he was a schlepper by trade. In other words, he was carrying big bundles, and that was his parnasa to schlep things, and to help people with their luggage, with their baggage, and so on and so forth. And the Baal Shem Tov notices this Yid schlepping his packages down the street, and Nebuch, he's being taunted by the local kids. They're like making fun of him, and they're calling him. His name was Herschel. Herschel Goat. Herschel, like a goat. Herschel Goat. Herschel Goat. Schlepp the bags, making fun of him. And Baal Shem Tov notices that this person Herschel, who's being called Herschel the Goat, is looking at the kids and just smiling and saying, Baruch Hashem, just playing with the kids in, not in an angry way, and just, accepting it, b'sefer panim yafis, with a pleasant face. So Baal Shem Tov sees this, he says, and obviously he was upset about these kids making, picking fun and picking on a Yid. That's obviously not nice. But there was something special Baal Shem Tov said, is that I noticed that on top of this Yid's head was mamish like a pillar of fire. Mamish like a pillar of fire, a sign of the divine presence hanging over this person's head. And Baal Shem Tov turned to his two disciples, his two chassidim, were traveling with him, and said to them, like, do you see what I see? They're like, yeah, we see it also, this pillar of fire. Now, no one else noticed that, obviously. But the Baal Shem Tov made a mental note of, like, I want to figure out who that Yid is. And why does he have a pillar of fire over his head? Why are they calling him Herschel Goat? Like, what's going on? What's the story of this Yid? So the Baal Shem Tov said that for the next 3 days, he was staying in town for a few days. For the next 3 days, he fasted all day long, only drank a little bit at night, in order to have the schus to grasp who this Yid was. After 3 days of fasting, the Baal Shem Tov said that he was leaving shul at the end of the day, and Bashgacha Pratis, lo and behold, happens to be this Yid, this Reb Herschel, is walking down the block. And so the Baal Shem Tov, after fasting 3 days for the whole purpose of trying to understand who this Yid was, happens to see this Yid. So he goes over to him, and he says, hi, my name is Yisrael, whatever, I'm new to town, I'm visiting for a few days. And the person says, hi, my name is Herschel. And right away, Reb Herschel says to him, he says, you're a guest over here. You look a little bit tired and hungry. Do you want something to eat or drink? So Baal Shem Tov says, certainly, that would be very nice. So Reb Herschel says, okay, come, you're going to come to my house. So they walk together to the end of town, and you get to Reb Herschel's house. And a house, it was a hut, a shack that's falling apart. And the Baal Shem Tov says that he comes to the home of Herschel. Herschel opens the door. Baal Shem Tov says he sees the strangest thing in the world. Inside the house, there was like 5 or 6 goats. And they're just like jumping around, doing whatever goats do. And when Herschel comes in the door, all of a sudden all the goats are jumping even more intensely. They're happy to see their master. And they come, they start licking his hand and making goat noises. And just, it's all simchadik. And so Baal Shem Tov is watching this. And Reb Herschel, calms the goats down and says, makes room for the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov comes, he doesn't know who the Baal Shem Tov is. The Baal Shem Tov comes and sits down, and he says, I'm going to get you something to drink. We'll have some goat milk. And he keeps on talking about the goats, and goat milk is so healthy, and it's delicious, and it's nutritious, and it'll make you feel good. It'll heal whatever ails you. And so Baal Shem Tov is sitting there, okay. And Reb Herschel goes and takes one of the goats, milks the goat, gives the Baal Shem Tov the cup of milk to drink. And so, okay, the Baal Shem Tov drinks the milk, and they're Farbrenging a little bit. And Reb Herschel begins to open up about who he is in his life. And he says the following thing. He said, if you don't mind, I want to share with you something. I haven't told anyone this, but I think it's like, it's a simon from heaven that I should tell you this. He said, what? He said that, Nebuch, many years ago, he was married, he had a wife. Many years ago, his wife passed away. And he said that when they first got married, they made a decision that they're going to dedicate themselves, whether they have money, they don't have money, whatever the situation in life is, they're going to dedicate themselves to helping Yidden. That's going to be their inyan, in whatever way they can. And he said, my wife was a big balas chesed. We would always have guests, and she would always try to do everything she could to help her neighbor and to help other Yidden. She was always like looking out to help Yidden, and that's what she did, and that's what I did. Now, a number of years ago, she passed away, and I wanted to sort of continue on. Herschel says her legacy of helping Yidden and being focused on chesed. So I bought a goat. They saved him some money. Maybe he was a little bit eccentric. I don't know. He buys a goat, and he said, and one goat led to another goat, and he has this whole chevra of goats. And he says, this is what I do. I use my goats mamish for chesed. I milk them. I take the milk and I don't sell it. I just give it as charity for anyone that needs milk. And I make cheese from the goats and give it out to poor people in the city. And this is what I do. This is my joy in life. My focus in life is just to help Yidden. And in particular, I use my goats to do that. But in any which way to help Yidden, that's the dedication of my life. And it came from my wife. So Baal Shem Tov is listening to this. It's a beautiful zach. It's a little bit funny with the goats, but it's a beautiful zach. And he said to people in the town, they make fun of me, they call me Herschel Goat because I use my goats to do chesed, but to me it's just all about trying to help Yidden in whatever way possible. And to me, this is how I do it. But it's just about helping Yidden. Okay? Baal Shem Tov is listening. And then Reb Herschel becomes more serious, and he says, and I'll tell you something. My wife, as I said, passed away a number of years ago, but mamish last night, she came to me in a dream. She said that in Shemayim, they're so excited about how much chesed you've been doing with the course of your life, and as a gift from heaven, they're going to give you the opportunity tomorrow. This is when my wife tells him, his wife tells him last night, that tomorrow that you're going to get a gift from heaven, that a big tzaddik is going to come, is going to pass by you, and you're going to be able to have the opportunity to speak to a big tzaddik. And so Rav Herschel turns to Baal Shem, he says, it must be you. And so I'm asking you, if it's such a blessing to have you in my presence, maybe you can teach me a little Torah. I don't know anything. This person, Herschel, was an Amaretz Mamish, didn't know anything. But he was dedicated to helping Yidden. But he's asking Baal Shem, teach me some Torah. So Baal Shem says, of course, Avadas, they begin to learn everything. And Baal Shem is taken by this Yid. He's Mamish taken by this Yid. There's something special about how much Ahavas Yisrael this Yid had. By nature, by just, that was his inyan, to helping Yidden. And so the Baal Shem Tov speaks to some of his Chassidim, and they decide that they're going to take this Reb Herschel under their wing. And even though he doesn't know anything and he's not educated, but they're going to take him under their wing, and they're going to turn him into a tzaddik, into a Talmid Chacham. And so Baal Shem Tov said, for the next 5 years, we dedicated ourselves to teaching this Reb Herschel, Mamish from Aleph Beis till Mamish Kabbalah Pnimis HaTorah. And we turned him into Mamish a tzaddik nister. He was already tzaddik, already he was helping Yidden, but now that he has Torah and Avodah and Big Madregas in context with his Avos Yisrael. And after 5 years of studying under the Baal Shem, he then went back independently, went on his own way, and ended up living in the city of Brod. And in the city of Brod, he was a tzaddik nister. No one knew who he was. He was just a viter, a person that was a schlepper that had some goats that he would do chesed for people. But Lamaisa, he was Paul Yeshuas as a tzaddik nister. Baal Shem Tov said a number of years later, Nebuch, this Reb Herschel passes away. And in the city of Brod that he was living in, no one knew who he was. No one took him so seriously. They thought he was a little bit of an eccentric old man that was very kind and nice and helped people, but he didn't realize, first of all, how much chesed he was doing. They didn't realize how big of a tzaddik he was in a secret way, and how much he was being poyel Yeshuas for the whole town without them realizing it. And so obviously they treated him respectfully by the Levaya. There was a funeral and so on, but said the Baal Shem, in Shemayim there was a big prosecution against the town for the lack of respect that they showed relative to how much he deserved. The lack of respect that was shown to him at the end of his life. The Levi wasn't as big as it was supposed to be. And it was a big tain in Shemayim. Ad kedei kach, that said the Baal Shem Tov, there was, God forbid, going to be heavy decrees against that city. And the Baal Shem Tov said, and I was trying to move out of those decrees myself, other tzadikim, it was a big problem. Until finally, said the Baal Shem Tov, the wife of this Reb Herschel, comes to the Kisei HaKavod, comes to the throne of Hashem, it comes to the Bezdin Shalom, and she says, listen, my entire life and my husband's entire life was all about helping Yidden. It was all about Chesed. It was all about Avos Yisrael. And all of his madregas, and all of his Torah, and all of his Avodas Hashem that he learned from the Baal Shem Tov was all in the context of his Avos Yisrael. And everything he was about was trying to help Yidden and be mechazik them and be Pal Yeshuas for them. And because of all of that, Yidden are going to suffer because of him. His town having terrible decrees upon it is the opposite of what his whole life was about. So it doesn't make sense that because of him, Chas v'Shalom, Yidden should be affected, and because of that, the Gzeres were annulled, and Adarabah, only more bracha came to the city in the schus of this Reb Hershel Goat. No, you see from such a thing. We have no idea. A person helps Yidden, you have a focus on helping Yidden, even if it's like in a funny way, like, giving out goat milk, whatever it is. Helping Yidden is mamish the key into the Pesach to all big madregas. And this Yid became a tzaddik nister, really only because of his Avos Yisrael. Hashem should help us. We should zeicha to love Yidden, and be mekash ourselves to Avos Yisrael, mekash ourselves to other Yidden. And with that alone, that should be enough of a schus to be able to bring down mamish shefa, bracha, and atzlacha, and a gul barachmim to us and to all of Klal Yisrael. Tzadikim, Amen.